how you doing, everybody? This is Candid Frank, and that is Aaron William Freeland, and this, of course, is Leaf Talk, where we talk about Canadian teams, Canadian athletes, Canadian everything when it comes to sports. He's, again, Aaron William Freeland. And Aaron, how you doing? I've been real busy.
Just gonna say, doing all right there, Frank. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I've been real busy. Yeah, I've been
going on.
I've been deleting all our shows.
Oh, that's not good.
Well, no, I mean, we're living in an era where don't leave a trail because, free speech is no longer the primary thing that we have to depend on in life, apparently, if one looks south of the border.
Well, the good news is in Canada, we do have freedom of expression.
Yeah, unfortunately, the giant beside us casts a very long shadow, and that's very concerning. By the way, that was a joke. I wasn't serious about it. I was just trying to make a stupid point. All right, let's go to what we're here to do, and let's talk about the Toronto Blue Jays. And, of course, a key player for the Toronto Blue Jays, hitting and fielding for that matter, their shortstop. It has now been determined that he no longer has a chance or will play in the regular season. That doesn't mean he won't be available for the playoffs. And the thing of it is that if you're concerned about him being not fresh and not ready and worrying about him being stale, it's one thing being stale and it's another thing being unhealthy. So they want to make sure it's only going to be 4 or 5 weeks that he'll be resting that knee. So they'll have time. There would be a moment if they happen to finish first, because they're doing a good job of making that point that they're going to finish first. There's going to be a time when they're not playing because there's going to be a few series that are going to be played while they're on the sidelines waiting for those series to be decided. So there will be a little bit of staleness, or teams will be a little rusty. The ones that get past the first round and don't have to play. So talk to us about Bo Bichette. What do you see, and how does it play out?
Well, they're most likely saying he'll return in time for the postseason. And that, I think, is the general intention here. He suffered a left knee sprain in a 3-1 loss to the New York Yankees on September 6th when he collided with the catcher at home plate in the 6th inning of the game. He sat out the series finale the following day and was placed on the 10-day injured list last Tuesday. We're definitely hoping that we get him back. He leads Major League Baseball with 181 hits and 44 doubles, and is third in the majors with a .311 batting average. He also has a team-leading 94 ribbies to go along with 18 home runs in 139 games. So, it would be ideal if they were able to get him back before the playoffs started, because he's been despite people not necessarily enamored with him in general, his play has been exemplary. So it's one of those things where you're really hoping that it's not any more significant than that, and it's more of a tweak than anything else. But it is a left knee sprain, so hopefully he'll be able to recover quickly from that.
He runs against the grain.
He really does.
Off his hair, and he's played better with his hair cut.
It's the reverse of Samson.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the debut of Savage.
So this was a guy that a lot of people had a lot of hope for. He's played in 5 separate leagues, working his way up through the minors until he finally had a chance to get his major league debut in. He put together a debut on Monday unlike anything else that we'd ever seen before. He struck out 9 hitters. That's the most any Blue Jays thrower has ever done in a Major League Baseball debut. It sparked a great night for Toronto, who won 2-1 in extra innings and is now 5 games up in the AL East. Well, they were 5 games up in the AL East, but that's we'll get to that in a bit here. But for one of those players that they had high hopes for, he's performed extremely well. Schneider was very encouraged by that. I think they kind of knew what they had, because Yesovich had 160 strikeouts in 98 minor league innings this season. and his stuff very obviously works up a major too. Now the Blue Jays haven't determined exactly how the rookie is going to factor into the postseason plan, but if he looks this good, he has to factor into the picture somewhere. Whether to put it to the bullpen to act as relief as opposed
Ooh.
to starts there because he's so young. Like there is that danger if you throw him into a playoff game, he's going to get eaten alive, and that's just not good for your confidence. Then again, neither is putting him in as a closer. So
Well, he came from A ball. He started the year in A ball. So that's double A, triple A, Major League Baseball. So he has had to play at a new level 4 times this year. And each time he advanced a level, he played really well. Now, that start that he had was incredible. Now, a lot of that can be attributed to adrenaline hit, right? So the question then becomes, what does he do in the next time he pitches, now that teams have some film on how he pitches? So to your point that it could be hazardous to his career to put him in pressure in the playoffs, it also depends how they feel mentally. He is prepared not for success, but for failure, in my opinion. Like that's what he has to be ready for, is that when he hits a ceiling, how is he capable of recovering and breaking through that ceiling? So that's what the team has to figure out. To your point, it comes right down to what you said, which basically is it advantageous for him to go in the playoffs? Will it help him in his future endeavor as a major league pitcher? And will it help the Toronto Blue Jays this year? If the answer to both those is yes, he's going to help us, we believe he can, but we're going to do it in a guarded sense, put the kid in.
The other thing is, if they do want to use him during the playoffs, they may not necessarily want to tip their hand by giving a lot of opposing teams more stuff to watch.
Absolutely. In other words, pull him back and then throw him out there just to throw off the opposition. One thing's for sure. Great pitching wins in the playoffs. Great starter, great. That's awesome. But great relief pitchers, great long relief, great short relief. The reason I'm mentioning all this is because maybe they think he has a mindset to fit into one of those categories, and they prop him into that corner to see how he can do. Jays have a lot of pitchers. They traded for a few. There's one still working his way back from AAA. If they can have all the pitchers on deck and, have those arms, now you can only dress so many, but good news, in the playoffs, you're allowed to use even more, as long as they were in the organization they belong to by the certain cutoff date. So I think the Jays are well served in throwing him out there as someone that teams might need to concern themselves with. Maybe while these teams are concentrating and thinking, okay, what are we going to do with this kid? What are we going to do with this kid? Then the Jays just send out the old stuff they had before and don't send out the kids. So there's a lot of benefit in just the thought of him pitching, even some if he doesn't, I think, as well.
No, for sure. And the whole idea is to keep the opposition guessing. So, obviously if you can get him reps, then that's better than not getting him reps. But at the same time, you want to keep him as a bit of a surprise.
So the Rays have handled the Jays quite well. They're playing the Jays in this series, and the Jays have done much better against them than they have in the past. Talk to me, Aaron. Blue Jays-Rays series.
Well, so there was a game that I thought might have gotten a little bit out of hand. Now, the Jays are seeking their first AL East title since 2015. They've managed to maintain a lead over the New York Yankees. Not last night, but the night before was an interesting game. Just in that there was an interesting call about fan interference, but not fan interference, which was rather interesting to me because the ruling from New York was that the fan had managed to reach into the field of play. So technically it was fan interference, but at the same time, Nathan Lucas wouldn't have been able to make the catch anyways. At least that was their determination, so that it would have been a home run. Unfortunately, because of the ballpark that the Rays have been forced to play in because of weather damaging Tropicana Field, there are no really adequate camera angles to cover off something of that sort of eventuality. So based on the parallax effect, I thought they lost a run, and it might not necessarily have worked in their favor. But at the end of the day, they didn't need to, because they closed that game out 6-5. Unfortunately, the next night they didn't do as well. Kevin Gausman was really sharp, but the Jays bats were not, and they ended up losing on Wednesday 2-1 to the Tampa Bay Rays. Every once in a while, the offense seems to take a holiday, which is not necessarily the best thing for the team, but these things, they have to find a way to battle through it. It's interesting as well that they had an interesting infield, mainly because of Bo Bichette's injury. They had Clement start at shortstop after he played second base the day before. Davis Schneider was at second with Ty France at first, and at the hot corner was IKF. So they're wasting no time in getting IKF back into it as well.
No, you need to have utility infielders that you can pull out to do silly things like running the bases, pinch hit, recover, cover for an injury like we've seen. Anyway, let's go on to Kevin Gausman, and he's been playing really well, and he's been pitching really well, to be clear. And he's been part of the reason why Tampa Bay has been having a little bit more problems with Toronto than they normally have.
Oh, no, for sure. And, it's one of those things where if he gets in and he's on, you're going to be able to limit the opposition significantly. The unfortunate thing is it doesn't always seem to work out that the bats are going at the same time. So they've got a little bit to work through in that regard. But for the most part, it does seem like everything was clicking, just with the minor fact of not quite enough offense.
Absolutely. Okay,
now,
let's. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, interesting news on the CFL front. Looking at the Argonauts, they're going to be without Nick Arbuckle on Friday when they host the Montreal Alouettes. He was listed as out on the team's official injury report on Wednesday, currently dealing with a calf injury. That means that they're going through the depth chart, and pivot Jarrett Doge will start in his place. Now, Arbuckle was injured late in Week 15's matchup against the Elks and did not finish the contest. Before leaving the game, he had completed 21 of 31 passes for 261 yards with 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. In 13 games this season, Arbuckle has completed 72.5% of his passes and thrown for a league-leading 4,089 yards to go along with his 25 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. Doge filled in for Arbuckle for the remainder of last weekend's game and helped orchestrate the drive that put Toronto in position to kick a game-winning walk-off field goal. So Friday night, 7 p.m. start at BMO Field. Fans can catch it on TSN in Canada or on CFL Plus, US or internationally. It's going to be an interesting game for sure.
Absolutely, it is. Daggy, when I talked to him after the last game, is really looking forward to taking advantage of this opportunity. This is his 3rd year in the Canadian Football League. He feels he's got his head wrapped around the game here, and he's got a pretty good offense to work with. It's going to be interesting, with the Argos unable to bring in their starter because they put him on the shelf for a little while longer, and they can't bring him back for a few weeks. So it's turned into a real dog's breakfast when it comes to the starting quarterback with the Toronto Argonauts. And we all know it's a bad deal when you don't have your starting quarterback in the Canadian Football League. Success is much harder to achieve. We've seen that this year with quarterbacks going down first, number 1 quarterbacks going down. Let's talk about the Ticats and offensive lineman Joey Lombard.
So they've announced that they signed American offensive lineman Joey Lombard to their expanded practice roster. Lombard most recently spent time with the NFL's Kansas City Chiefs. He's 6'5", 305 pounds. He's from Anoka, Minnesota, and played his entire collegiate career at the University of South Dakota, starting 48 of 51 games for the Coyotes. In his senior year, he captained the offensive line and helped anchor a unit that ranked second in tackles for loss allowed, sixth in rushing offense, ninth in total offense, and ninth in sacks allowed per game. So they're getting a sizable individual to help them out on their line. The good news, that's good news for them. Bad news for the rest of the teams in the division.
Let's talk about. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, my brain just froze. Kelly's return is supposed to be for October 4th against Hamilton, correct? That would be week 18.
Week 18 and October 4th. Yes, he can't come before. I think it's 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay.
Once you're put on the 6th game, because he can't even practice with the team right now. That's the issue. He can't even practice.
They kind of hamstrung themselves with this one.
They did. They've done it all year. They've made a mistake. They've made what looks like mistakes all year in as far as how they've handled him, how they've handled the cap because of him, and now how they've handled their trust in the fact that Arbuckle was able to play the next few games. And then they would have Kelly in there in a backup role, whatever that intention is. Let's go over to hockey and let's talk about the Canadians and their goaltending.
So the Canadians find themselves in a really interesting position this year. Now that training camp's officially here, there was some talk about which goalies would get new deals with them. Jacob Dobish is one of those players that need to be watched. He was a nice surprise for the Canadians this past season. He took a notable step forward in his development. In the 16 regular season games with the Habs in 24-25, he had a 7-4-3 record, a 2.74 goals against average, and a 909 save percentage. He also played in 3 playoff games for the Habs where he had a 1-2 record, a 2.91 goals against average, and a not so scintillating 881 save percentage. But, it was a very, very solid start to his career. Dobish is definitely going to be looking to impress during training camp. It's going to be interesting to see how he performs. As it currently stands, I'm just trying to pull up Puckpedia right now, but he is currently under contract. Here we go. He is currently under contract in year 1 of a 2-year deal that expires in 2027 at $965,000 per. It's standard player contract, total value of $1.93 million. So, this is good news for him. Good news for Montreal because they have a cost-effective backup goalie on tap.
Let's talk about the Sens, and GM Steos says Formenton will probably not return to the Senators, even though he's been acquitted.
Yeah. Now, Alex Formenton was one of the 5. The 26-year-old was drafted in the 2nd round by Ottawa in 2017. Steos says he has had discussions with Formenton's agent, led to a mutual decision that it would be best for everybody for a fresh start. Currently, the club is gauging the market for a potential trade. Formenton is one of the 5, who's the only one of the 5 who's actually a restricted free agent, with the Senators retaining his rights, hence the need for them to look around and kick tires. He had 23 goals and 39 points across 109 games for the Senators. He hasn't played in the NHL since 21-22 and has spent parts of 3 seasons with the Swiss club Ambri Piotta. Now, the Senators are entering camp with a momentum after snapping a 7-year playoff drought last spring. They're determined to not only get back to the postseason, but prove that same group can contend. Bringing a player like Formenton back into it may not necessarily help that cause, so I can understand in that regard. Again, there are the image issues that face the team over bringing him back, especially in light of what happened in 2018, what is alleged to have happened in 2018, and the results of the court case. So it's all stuff that they have to consider going forward, and it's really messy. And the fact that Formenton wouldn't be eligible to play for them until the beginning of December, and they wouldn't actually be able to sign him until October 15th, is another reason why they wouldn't be bringing him back.
A teammate, or at least a court mate, Dylan Dubé. There's talk now. Originally, they were talking about the Leafs, maybe, and now we're hearing talk of Winnipeg maybe jumping in and signing Dylan Dubé.
Yeah, there's been a lot of noise made about Dylan Dubé and how he would be an ideal signing for the Toronto Maple Leafs because he's one of those depth bottom six forwards. Dude played 42 games in the KHL last season and only managed 11 points. In 43 games with the Calgary Flames, he managed 7. I don't think he's exactly the player that a lot of people are bigging him up to be. They're all talking about him being a big body. The thing is, at 5'11" and 185 pounds, he's actually now considered on the smaller side in the NHL, so he's not necessarily that elite bottom six forward that people are claiming to be looking for. And again, what goes along with this is that whole litany of stuff with regards to the trial. So there's all this stuff that teams need to consider, and whether alienating some of their fan bases is worth it.
Flames signed Captain Michael Backlund to a 2-year contract extension.
This was long overdue. He's entering the final season of a 2-year, $9 million deal. His $6.5 million extension announced Wednesday will keep him a Flame until 2028 when he turns 39. Now, Backlund has spent his entire 1,066-game NHL career in Calgary and is currently the longest tenured active skater on the Flames. As it currently stands, he's also, I think, closing in on Jerome Iginla's franchise records. And is looking forward to playing in Calgary's new arena with his new extension. So that's good news.
Apparently, Carter Hart is not in the Oilers' plans.
No, it's one of those things that they were looking at potentially picking him up, but he apparently he's not a big fan of coming north. So that's again the volatility of the Canadian market and the tax situation plays into that. He's been floated out there in speculation that the Oilers could be among teams willing to sign him, but Bowman put the kibosh on that when he confirmed his team isn't interested. He had a 12-9-3 record, a 2.8 goals against average, and a .906 save percentage. And Bowman said right now they're just not looking for those kind of numbers. They're going to be sticking with Skinner and Pickard going into 25-26.
Those players are having a hard time to get in Canada. I think Canada's going to be tough. If they're going to play, I think that the odds are better that they'll play for an American team, where what happened here in Canada at least has an arm's length situation if they play in the U.S. Let's go to Zach Hyman. How's his wrist injury coming?
Well, he actually showed up without a cast on his right wrist, so it appears he's on the mend after dislocating and tearing ligaments in his wrist in the 5th game of the Western Conference Final. He was saying, obviously, he feels great. There's no more cast. He says he hasn't been able to push any weights in the gym or move the sofa, but his cardio from riding a bike is A1. He won't necessarily be ready for day one. He's skating. He's just not with the team yet. He's not ready to commit to whether or not he's actually going to be able to play any exhibition games with the Oilers, who currently have 8 on schedule. And he says, look, I've had major surgery before on my knee. And when you set a timeline or a date, you often get disappointed. For me, he's going to be looking at it, he says, in 2-week blocks, milestones we can check off and hit. They're progressing well, but he's not willing to commit to anything at this point. So he's basically going to be a cheerleader. He turned 33 in June. So, it's one of those things where, he's got to make sure that he's ready to come back.
Let's go to the Leafs, and camp is open. They have 73 players to look at. Those players will make up not only the Maple Leafs, the discarded players or the drop-down players will go to the Marlies.
Yeah, there's a lot of familiar names on there. There's 44 forwards. There's 23 defensemen, and they're actually going into it based on what I can see here with 6 goalies. So there's Ken Appleby, who played with Charlotte last year. Archer Aksiamov, who played with the Marlies. Dennis Hildeby, Vyacheslav Peksa. They drafted him 6th. He played with the Marlies, and he played with Cincinnati. Anthony Stolarz, obviously, and Joseph Wall. On the defensive side of things, they're looking at a lot of different players here. Matt Benning is looking to work his way back into the NHL. They've got Brandon Carlo, Noah Chadwick. There's been a Ben Danford sighting, which is awesome. OEL's back again. On the forward end, you've got Landon Sim, Logan Shaw, Nicholas Roy, Nicky Bobby, Nick Riom. There's a lot of Nicks. Michael Pizzetta, Cedric Paré. They're all looking to work their way back into it. Not to mention Cal Yarncroke and a few other notables as well. So it's going to be a very interesting camp for the Leafs. There are a lot of guys who are on the bubble, a lot of guys that could potentially make it, that are going to be very, very hungry for a chance to crack it.
Morgan Riley's come out of the chute in a hurry. He's playing really well. Reports are players are really amazed by the way he's playing. Good luck to him. Another player that is on a kind of a situation that, of course, is Ty Domi's son. He has a lower body injury. And how's that going?
Well, he apparently sustained a lower body injury during off-season training and is currently listed as day-to-day. Matthias Michelli could get an early look on the first line with Austin Matthews and Matty Nyes. The idea is because of Michelli's passing ability akin to Domi's, they're looking to get him worked through there. Both Domi and Michelli fit the sort of Marner mold, as it were. That's definitely going to be interesting for sure. I think that there's a lot of positive buzz surrounding Morgan Riley at this point because I think he's sleeping more. Apparently, having the kid last season was very disruptive, so he wasn't getting nearly as much rest as he required. So that's one of those things that has thrown everything into question. So
let's see what he looks like in December. We can now talk about the fact that Craig Berube mentioned the core former is not about core 4 is now core former. He's not really worried about that anymore. He's glad to not have that conversation. And when you talked about players picking up, the workload or the statistic benefit that, Marner brought to the Maple Leafs, there's no one individual who's going to do that. There just isn't anyone that they could bring to do that. They don't have the assets to trade for one, and they don't have the kind of talent on deck, if you will, to be able to do that. But what they can do is help to feed the captain, guys that can pass. We saw Domi do it really well for a time, and maybe he'll do it again. If he can't do it, they're hoping guys like Michelli can step in and be a release point for passes to take advantage of that great shot that the captain has. So how do you feel about the team not being, core former, and now that Marner's gone? Is there, we're hearing from reports that this means the team is more in focus than Marner, especially these last couple of years. He has sucked all the oxygen out of the air in the Leaf world.
No, Marner was very much media forward and very much center forward for them. Not in the fact that he played center, but in the fact that he always seemed to be at the sharp end of the spear. There has been talk of referring to them now as not the core 4, but the key 3, and the focus has shifted now. When it comes to the forwards, you're looking at Austin Matthews, Willie Nylander, and now Matty Nyes. Morgan Riley, technically, I guess, could be considered part of that as well. Tavares has mostly dropped out of the conversation.
Aaron, he has to be. Morgan Riley has to play at his weight. And by weight, I mean the weight of his wallet. He has to play. He's got to be a valuable player to this team.
There's no doubt. He's got to be value added for them. Austin at 13.25, Nylander at 11.5, Matty Nyes at 7.75, and Riley at 7.5. Those are the guys that they have to make this work for. John Tavares is a nice addition at $4.39 million. Don't get me wrong, but because of his age and the fact that he's now 34, he's taken a step back, just to let other players sort of do what it is they need to do. So with Riley with the other A and Tavares, and Matthews with the C still, there has been a definite shift. You're not looking at those 4 players as a microcosm anymore. You are going to be looking at more of the team as a whole. So that's, I think, a bit of a relief. for some of these players. There's not going to be that much of a laser focus. It'll be more team oriented, which I can only say is I think going to help the Leafs in the long run.
Really, the major hope is when it comes to Tavares that he gives them about 90% of what he gave them last year for less than half the price, essentially. And then those other players that they were able to get because he took a pay cut, a little help in the middle six, if you will. That's something that he's helped them with by what he did contractually. So it's going to be an interesting year, Aaron. There's going to be trouble on the horizon. They are not, I don't think this is the year they're going to finish first. This is the year they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot, I think, from beginning to end. And if they somehow lose their mojo and go on a bit of a reverse roll, they're going to learn what it's like to be Ottawa and Montreal in the Atlantic Division. So they're going to have to be good and maintain being good throughout the season. They have to play above average forever to make the playoffs, because that's what you need to do in the NHL with making the playoffs.
Yeah, there's no way that they can get around the fact that this is not going to be an easy season. Those rides that they've had to the lead of the division, or at least second place, that they've had in the past few years isn't necessarily going to be repeated, just mainly because the personnel have shifted as much as they have. They've sent out 9 guys, they brought in 11. One of their major dudes is gone. It's the shifting landscape that is Toronto Maple Leafs hockey. But again, that's really no excuse, because other teams have done the same sort of thing. So they need to make sure that they can maintain
it every year. Thanks for doing this, Aaron. He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanishi. If you want to follow what we're doing, you can go to YouTube, and that is Candid Frank Stanishi 1030. Thanks for watching, everybody. Enjoy the football. We got the Argos and the Argos and the Alouettes. They're going to need a victory. Aaron, hope to see you there.
Yes, sir.